Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm here today to talk to you about first-hand knowledge, experimental knowledge, the kind of knowledge gained and only gained by interacting, experiencing, and learning firsthand what is going on in any particular subject field. I'll start with a short quote from Codex Oera Linda, which is what I talk about a lot on this channel. It's a quote from chapter 13e, the Primal Teachings, the first book. And it says, "But although all is in Varalda, the wickedness of mankind is not in him. Wickedness comes from sloth, heedlessness, and stupidity. Therefore, it can harm the people, but never Varalda. Varalda is wisdom, and the Ewa he established are the books from which we can learn. No wisdom can be found or gathered outside of them." And the Ewa that are spoken about here are simply the set of natural laws. They're described in the book a water-like concept that always finds its own level. Things that happen automatically. It's also described as that sense of good and evil in the hearts of all creatures, or all mankind, excuse me. This little blurb exemplifies some of the things that I see going on in YouTube, on the internet in general, that people tend to look for ideas about a subject without actually engaging with the subject matter at hand. And this can be anything from politics to religion to sociological topics, and in this case, certainly historical topics, and in this case, Codex Oera Linda. It's like if you've ever read the jacket of a novel, the jacket copy of a novel. Often, in my experience, when I read the jacket copy, and then I decide to take the book and I'll read the book, the description of what I'm about to read has nothing to do with the story. I'm amazed sometimes how this copy gets through the editing process. Same thing happens if you watch a movie based on a book. You know, some even movies like Star Wars. I remember back in the 70s, I had that original book, and then you watch the movie, and it was a great movie, but it didn't really match with what you read in the book. And nowadays, a lot of times, the movies about the books, I have the sense if you didn't read the book, you're going to have no clue what the story is even about, because it just skips from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and there's no context, and you don't know what's going on unless you've read the book. And you know, maybe it's legitimate. It's apparently entertaining, and it's popular for people. People like to watch these films about. What bothers me or concerns me is that when people are presenting themselves as experts on a topic, and the audience has not really got any clue because they've never engaged with the source material. If we're talking about Codex Oera Linda, they've engaged perhaps with a translation of the material, but something is always lost in translation. I'm a translator by profession, and on a daily basis, I make judgment calls about what I think the author is trying to say. In some cases, completely removed from the language used. And it's a different beast when you're dealing with an ancient text, because you can't be an expert in the historical context because you didn't live there, you didn't experience it, and so judgment calls are going to be much more dangerous is maybe not the right word, but they're not going to, there's no guarantee that they're going to have any accuracy. So with a historical text, you try to stick as close to the language as possible without adding or subtracting anything if possible. It's not completely possible in all cases. There's words that come up in Codex Oera Linda, for example, that you know what they mean, you know perfectly what they mean, but you just can't find anything in modern language to express it. There's a case in the description of Laida where the Oera Linda has a word, ratbauda, and it's a wonderful word. Retbauda probably would be a closer pronunciation. And it means something like well conceived physically, but well built has a slightly different connotation in modern English, and it just doesn't sound right. So what are you going to do? You can't use the original word because no one will know what it means. So these are some of the things that you run into when you're dealing with a text firsthand that are swept into the background if you're only reading a translation. And then take it one further step removed, if you're not even reading the translation but relying on someone else's reading of the translation. And in the case of the Sandbach translation of Codex Oera Linda, that's a translation of a translation. It wasn't even translated from the original text. And he did a great job, but there's definite shortcomings based on the fact that he didn't have access to the full manuscript, and also just based on the fact that he didn't have access to the tools and techniques that we have in translation today. So what I'm trying to get at is there are ways to engage with the original text. The Oera Linda Foundation, which you can find on the internet at www.oeralinda.org, has set up a forum where people can have discussion directly about some of these topics, and it's in use. It's not a dead forum, and we encourage anyone to visit and read some of the threads and add anything that they would like. There's also the Oera Linda Wiki, and that is a resource that is really invaluable to anyone interested in firsthand interaction with Codex Oera Linda, because there you'll find facsimile copies of the original manuscript pages, so nothing in between except a camera. And then we've got the transcription, which is so of the original text, which can be read in Latin letters or a font that we have developed, or one of the people at the foundation has developed to render the text in a style that looks a lot like the original transcript, the original manuscript. And then we've got our English translation, as well as the Sandbach translation, and several different Dutch translations, German translations, I think the start of a Spanish translation. There's dictionaries of the old Frisian language, which doesn't harken back as far as the Frayas, as we call the language of the Oera Linda. but there are a lot of terms that you can find in these dictionaries. Blog posts about the with word studies, etymological studies, different ways to go about exploring the language of Oera Linda. And obviously, not everyone is going to be able to use this resource fully. But if you want to have any idea of what's really going on in the context of Codex Oera Linda, I would encourage you, but I would also say I almost think it's a fool's errand if you gather opinions about the topic without any firsthand knowledge of a topic. For example, there's videos on the internet that purport to delve deep into a specific section of the translation, but they never mention the original language. They never share with you the original language. I'm willing to bet that most people watching the videos certainly don't have a version of the original language in front of them. So where exactly are you as an audience member? Where's the critical thinking that goes on to decide whether the presentation this person is making, whether they're very compelling presentations many times. Obviously, they're going to have, some of them have very good production values, or you enjoy someone's voice, but the or they have a reputation as an expert in historical or archaeological, sociological matters, but the essence of freedom and the essence of a life in line with natural law, as described in Codex Oera Linda, is to not to engage in sloth, heedlessness. So that's the root of evil, right? According to what we read at the beginning of this video, not taking the time to switch on critical thinking skills. And critical thinking requires data, not just opinion. So what we've done with the Oera Linda wiki.oeralinda.org, and that's OERALINDA. What we've done is provided the general public for free is at their fingertips, at the click of a button, on a mobile device or on a desktop device. You can quickly zero in on any bit of language in whatever language you understand. Compare, find the section. We've got line numbers. You can find the section in the original text and find out exactly what's going on, what is there. And you'll be surprised, if you're an English speaker, at just how familiar these words will end up being. It's one of the joys of this work, is to discover the etymology of a word you've been using your whole life. If you look at the language of Oera Linda and think a few steps further or a few steps back, you can really find fascinating facts and factoids about language that you use every day, and it will make you a more effective user of the language if you do so. There's so many benefits to really engaging with this and not getting stuck on the superficial aspects, or even worse, the imagined aspects. So the things that are being said in some of the presentations online are just not to be found in Oera Linda, and they're someone's fantasy of the way the world should work, or and now I found a source to corroborate my own beliefs. But in many cases, it's just not so, and going in, that's a form of bias, going in and saying, okay, this is what I believe, now I'm looking for something to support it. It's pretty easy to do that. You can pick up any book almost and find that, especially for just simplistic ideas about the simplistic historical narrative. History is anything but simple, and language is a way of simplifying concepts down to the point that we can communicate them with each other. And the engagement with the language of these texts is the key to understanding what it is they're trying to say, the concepts, the very complex story that is being disseminated through these texts. It's pretty much all I had to say. Would you go to a mechanic or a cook who just watched YouTube tutorials and then tried to cook the meal for you the first time, or to fix your car? No, you wouldn't. But if you didn't have any knowledge of cooking or mechanics yourself, you could quickly be duped into paying someone for shoddy work or a horrible meal, or a mediocre meal that is sold to you as wonderful. So if you're really interested in Codex Oera Linda, which you should be, because it's a work that has been shunned by academia. It's been kept secret by those who can keep secrets, so it's fascinating just on those grounds. But really delving into the language or the story itself, it will open up new vistas of understanding. At least it has for me. So if you are interested, become an expert. Become an expert yourself. It's easy. You go to the Oera Linda wiki and you check it out for yourself. We are not completely finished with the newest revision of the book, the latest revision, which I would say, knocking on wood, it will be the last revision, because I think we've really nailed it this time. 2 or 3 more chapters to go, and we'll be finished. So it's the cutting edge understanding of what's going on with this book, and all kinds of background information available to go along with it. I appreciate all of you who are interested in this topic, and I would simply encourage you to become more involved, just a little further, a little more effort, and it will pay off immensely. And I understand wanting to watch presentations about it, and well done presentations and movies and all these things that we really hope will eventually grow from the understanding of Codex Oera Linda. But I say be patient. Add something yourself if you can. Everyone can make a YouTube channel too. And get in touch if you have questions through the forum. There's email contacts on the foundation website. Do all you can to find out what is really contained in the Codex Oera Linda, and don't rely on online experts, as polished as their presentation might be. without double checking. Thanks for listening.